Welcome to It's Not Really About Dance, a podcast on all the things we're learning about raising healthy, happy, and wholesome kids and teenagers in today's world through the context of competitive dance. I'm Beth.
And I'm Sarah, and we believe that competitive kids activities are about way more than performance or awards. They're about teaching resilience, humility, confidence, and heart. Each episode will use the context of dance to dive into real talk, practical tips, and stories to inspire you to parent with purpose. Hello, and welcome back. Beth, how's it going this week?
First week of May-cember.
Felt that.
How about with you?
Yeah, same. It's like every day somebody adds something to the calendar that I don't want to add, but we get it done and it is all fun stuff, but very, very busy. I'm always so ready for summer and a break and to not do things come June.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even today, I had to leave work and go to an awards ceremony for one of my kids at school. And it was like, what are the exact amount of minutes I need to get to that? And then what exact amount of minutes do I need leaving early? I told my kid, I was like, I will be there. I will not be taking photos afterwards. I have to get back for a meeting. It's just crazy.
That will be me on Thursday. I get to experience this award ceremony. Fun times.
Thankfully, I had another mom send me some photos. So I was like, okay, good. They're looking out for me. Our oldest two go to the same school, but it is a gigantic school. So it has 2 grades, and they split each grade into 2 award ceremonies.
Which we are thankful for.
Yes, 4 total. Today, when they said, please hold your applause, we have over 400 students who have AB honor roll. I thought, this is going to be a while.
Go ahead and take a nap. Close your eyes for a minute. All right. Well, we've talked about phases before. That's back in episode 8. If you want to check out that phase overview of kind of what each section of growing up with our kids is like and what drives them and what motivates them at each of those stages. But today we're going to be looking at the middle phases. So 4th and 5th grade, all the way up through 7th to 8th grade. So very end of elementary school through middle school. And how kids this age handle a competition weekend. Now, this can apply to any situation. It doesn't have to be a dance competition. This could be a tournament or some kind of a meet if your kid runs track. Whatever version your activity is, this is going to be the same stuff. So this episode is going to be similar to episode 12. So we're not going to be going over the structure of what this event weekend is like, but more of how to be present with your kid who is in this middle phase. So if you've got a kid anywhere from 4th to 8th grade, this should really resonate with you, or this episode will. And if you have kids who are approaching this, hopefully this will give you a little bit of vision of what is to come. And if you have kids who are past this, maybe you can commiserate a little bit with what we're going to talk about. But we really hope that there's going to be some good truth here for you. And just some ways that you can be present with your kid in this specific phase. So things that are really for them, what kinds of things that you can really lean into that are going to add value to their life and the phase that they're in, and maybe things that are not as important or things you can even skip, because I know at dance competition weekends, we don't have a lot of extra minutes to spare. So if there's something that is not for us, I would love to not lean into that. So Beth, why don't you kind of start us off?
Between our 5 kids, we have 3 that are in this. So
both
of Sarah's kids, and then my middle it will be talking about. But of course, my oldest has been through all of these phases. So only my baby has not gotten to this stage yet. And we're only a couple months away from her being in this step.
And she gets the benefit of learning from our mistakes with other kids and having refined the parenting process by the time she gets here.
Yeah, hopefully we do it right by the 3rd time around. I mean, every kid's different, so it doesn't really work that way. But yeah. We still make mistakes, but hopefully, yes, we've learned some things. So we'll start with our 4th and 5th grade phase. So again, you can go back to episode 8 if you want to hear the overview of all of these and just talking about what kids emotionally and relationally need at this age. But the core question for a 4th or 5th grader is, do I have friends? And that friends being plural. This is my favorite phase. When I was a teacher, this is the age group that I taught. And when I work with kids in ministry, I tend to gravitate to this age group a lot because they have this really cool and fun tribe mentality at this age where like teams are big. Like who their groups that they associate with are a big deal. And what's different is up until this age, usually all of their friends have been mostly the kids of their parents' friends. But in 4th and 5th grade, they start to kind of forge their own way. And so it's a lot more about who they are connecting with. And what I really love, though, is kids this age are not naturally exclusive. They actually are very accepting of people if those people are kind of in their group. And they even can do it if a group was like put on them. For example, their school class. Like school classes will form these bonds, and like kids are all so different and they get close together still. Or maybe it's like the girls in their class or the boys in their class, and you'll see when they have birthday parties, like they, invite all the girls in their class or all the boys in their class and kind of do that kind of thing because this is their tribe. Like this is their group. And a lot of times they have multiple tribes across their life. So like I started thinking through my older two that have been through this phase, like some of the tribes, there'd be their school class, maybe their church small group, the people we tailgate with during football season. Like that's like a group that they associate with. Like those are our people that we hang out with during tailgate season. The neighborhood pool kids, like all the kids in our neighborhood, it's like these are my summer friends, this is my tribe for the summer, and they like feel like they belong to that group, and those are their people. And then of course, and what we're going to really talk about, their dance class or their sports team or their competitive dance team or any of those kinds of things. Those are tribes that it wasn't like they had to go and handpick the people in them. They sort of get put in this group, but they're very accepting and they align and feel belonging when they're in that. And it's just such a fun thing. I'd say the strongest tribe that my older two had in 4th and 5th grade was their small group routine for dance. And so, as we talked about small groups and dance, it's like 4 to 9 kids. So, I mean, my oldest two, when they were in 4th or 5th grade, their small group is who they wanted to have for sleepovers. It's who they wanted to do birthdays with. They would have these people over and like rehearse their routines. Like, I mean, it's just like the amount of times that I told people don't do acro on concrete by the pool because they're running these things. Like, that's just their tribe. It's their people. And so when you're at these competitive weekends, whether you're at a tournament or a meet or a dance competition, aligning and connecting with that tribe is a big part of the experience for them. And again, they don't tend to be exclusive if this group has been put on them. It's like it's a bond. So if I ever see like kids this age, and Sarah, I know you work with this age in schools, but like if I ever see like Mean Girl stuff in 4th or 5th grade, it's not like it is in middle school. It can almost always be resolved in 30 minutes with a serious, let's come and talk about it, and we hug and we're friends again. When I was teaching school, I used to at least once a year, I'd be like, oh, this is the day. About 2/3 of the way through the year, I would have a day that I would tell the PE coach, only the boys are coming today. I'm keeping the girls back. And like, because we just need to have a meeting. And like, we would talk about whatever was brewing up of like some kind of exclusion, separation stuff that was going on. And we would end up resolving and talking through it, because often they don't even know. Usually at this age, if there's any exclusion, they're not aware that they're doing it because they love people at this age. Naturally, it's just such a beautiful thing. So when it's brought to their attention, they're immediately remorseful and like want to resolve it, and be better. So we can take advantage of that when they are spending these weekends with their team and with their tribe by letting them be with those people. What I've seen is like some of the things that are really, really for them is to do all of the organized team things. And this isn't just their small group, it's also connection with the whole dance team. So those, when they're 9 and 10 and 11 years old in this 4th and 5th grade age, they adore those high school dancers. And so to be present with their other 9, 10, 11-year-old friends cheering for those high school dancers, it's like we're the young tribe cheering for the older ones that are all in our tribe. And it just is beautiful. And so anything they can be at where the organized things are happening just helps to foster that. We had this last weekend. All of the juniors had a long day of competition and they finished at like 7 p.m., which is kind of rare. And they said, we're all going to the pool. And I was like, you've done your competition, so I'm not worried about your spray tan or your makeup. Go jump in that pool. Have at it. And so those kids all went and hung out together in the pool. And it's like, so when those kind of things are happening, do it. Like those are the things to lean into as part of these competitive weekends. I would say, we've talked before about how going to dinner with everybody is not really practical just because there's not time for it at these events. But in that 4th and 5th grade phase, one thing I have seen is the kids who have a tendency to peel off and only go with one other kid somewhere, they end up being disconnected from the rest of the kids.
Yes, this is a very good point.
And it lasts like long term.
Yes.
It's like this is the age where the team is bonding and that's going to last them through high school. And so the kids who opt out from being with the team because they got one friend they want to go do something with, it like creates an isolation. So yeah, and we just have started to learn. This is something I picked up on pretty early on. And once our kids get to 4th and 5th grade age, we do a lot more door dashing and a lot less leaving. Like order that Chick-fil-A or that Cava or whatever you want to show up at the venue so you can eat and still be with the people instead of breaking away. Now, I get that sometimes you're like, I need to get out of this like loud thing. Rest is a different thing, like if you're getting rest. But the opting for like totally separating, I feel like that kind of works against this phase, as does the parents who really insist on their kids staying with them, or like grandma came along, so we're going to just hang out with grandma this weekend, or whatever scenario of that basically pulls them away from their team. I get it. You're in a cool place, a cool city, and you're like, I want to make some memories. And again, there's usually kids do competitive dance all the way from like age 8 to 18. So there are many years for those kind of things where it doesn't really affect things a lot. But I would say the 4th and 5th grade phase is such a key tribe phase that the more you can do with the people and be with the people on your team and with your tribe, the more it's like fostering exactly what your kid emotionally and relationally needs at that age. So again, the things that would work against them would be insisting your kid just stay with you, and maybe because you're like not sure about these people that you're on the team with, or you're not sure about what's going on. But that's where like picking your team is so important. Choose a group you trust, choose a studio you trust, a team you trust, so that you're willing to be there for it and give yourself to it, and lean into that. Picking your favorite people and only hanging out with them. Again, I see kids being encouraged to do this plays out in middle school to be that they're the ones that feel like they almost like develop a sense of feeling like they're a victim. They're being like excluded, but it's just because they've missed out on bonding time. Or sometimes they are the excluders because they've like picked a favorite person and they haven't practiced being with all the people. So yeah. Also, just like another thing that I've seen in this age that could maybe work against this tribe mentality, because kids are so naturally inclusive at this age, sometimes when kids have like a conflict because, they're sleep deprived and food deprived and all the things on these weekends are kind of crazy, it can make us say and do things that hurt other people. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
And
not at your best when you're tired.
Right. And so parents, when they sometimes see conflicts between these 4th and 5th grade aged kids, I've seen a tendency to removed from the group. And I get why you're doing that. You're like, I don't want this conflict to be here. We need to get away from it. But because this age is so actually good at resolving conflict, if we just tell them what to say and do, like they're prone to want to resolve conflict, you're missing an opportunity to kind of lean into that. And them wanting to be friends with everybody, but just not knowing how to say and do the right things means like we have an opportunity to like, coach them through an awesome life skill, and that's being with a lot of different kind of people. So if we pull them away, we're totally like cutting off that chance to develop that life skill. But the healthiest fourth and fifth graders that I see are the ones that just know how to balance the rest they need with engagement time with their team, and and definitely not isolation from their team. So I don't know. You've got an actual fifth grader in your house, Sarah. So what would you say are things that you've seen with her, maybe this season, some things that have really played into her and have been healthy for her, and maybe some things that have been you've noticed are things that would not be good for her at these events?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, forming those really tight bonds with her small group. This is the first year that she has had a small group. Now, she has danced with most of these girls her entire life. I mean, since she was 3 or 4, whenever she started. But her little small group this year has, I think, 8 in it. I don't even remember the exact number, but they have gotten really close over the course of this year. And I noticed a lot of, when they would break for lunch between convention classes, they had a longer lunch time than sometimes they only have like 20 or 30 minutes to eat lunch, but they had a full hour. And everything at this convention we were just at was really compact. So like everybody was staying in that hotel, which was just right upstairs. It would have been really easy for us to just go upstairs and have a minute of quiet and rest and eat in our room, because the hotel was the kind with the suites and there was a table and there's plenty of space to do that kind of thing. But she wanted to be able to sit with her friends and eat lunch, even though she had been with them the entire day. And it's always crowded and crazy and there's people everywhere. And you just kind of like throw a blanket on the floor in the hallway of this hotel to sit and eat. But I noticed that her little small group, the majority of them just kind of congregated together and they ate, and then they just like enjoyed hanging out. I mean, that was way more time than they needed to eat, and they absolutely could have gone and done something else, but they just wanted to be together in that time. And they were even like playing with a friend's little sister. I mean, they had a couple of outside kids who weren't in their small group that they're close with that joined in too. But that would have been a time that it would have been very easy. And like personally, I maybe would have preferred the quiet, but she wanted that time to just be with her friends during that hour and get to just hang out with them. Since they don't get to talk and be silly during those convention classes, they have to be so focused. So that was a time for them to just kind of deepen those bonds.
Did you notice that, like, so there's 8 in that small group. And so my daughter and one other are 6th graders, and then the rest are 4th and 5th. And
they peeled off.
The 2 that weren't hanging out with them were the 2 6th graders.
Yes.
Because it's like they have a different motivation,
mentality. Yes.
which we're going to get into in a second. But I'm just now thinking about that when you were like, the majority of them hung out. I'm like, yeah, it was the 2 6th graders that didn't, because they're in a different phase.
Right. And then something else that was kind of big, and I noticed this weekend, was talking about when they all went swimming. So my younger daughter did all of her routines. They had their award ceremony at 7 p.m. But both of my girls, like, it's always been really important to them for them to watch their sister perform. They may not get along all the time and they may fight, but this is just sort of like a thing that if they are able, they are going to watch their sister dance, even if they have other opportunities or things to do. So my oldest daughter, she didn't have to be ready for a long time, but she went ahead and got up and got herself dressed, and she came down to the performance room and she watched all of my younger daughter's routines. So then after the first award ceremony, all of my younger daughter's friends went to the pool, but my older daughter was just getting started with performing her routines. And so my youngest was really torn. I mean, she at one point was watching routines and like silently weeping
Oh,
because she felt such guilt about being pulled in two different directions, about wanting to go swim with her friends so badly, but also feeling bad about not watching her sister dance when her sister had watched her and she didn't have to.
well, she's being pulled between two tribes because her
Yes.
family is a tribe too. So she's like, I got two tribes. Which one do I choose?
And even though I told her that I was like, your older sister, she will understand. She will not mind if you go to the pool. She is not going to be upset with you. She was not going to go. Now, did she ask me 400 times, did I know who was still at the pool? As routines are running on and off stage, yes, she did. But luckily, with the tribe mentality, she wasn't even really concerned about who was at the pool as long as it was people she dances with. I mean, she really
Right.
didn't care. There didn't need to be a list of names, it didn't matter. And so ultimately, my husband was able to peel off with her once my older daughter finished her last routine. It wasn't terribly late. I think a decent sized group of them were still at the pool. So she did get to go and swim and hang out with them for a little while. So she managed to do both things and be loyal to both her tribes in the process, but I could see her mentally wrestling with this during that time. So that was really something that I think she kind of had to decide between like what was the right thing for her to do in that moment when she had attention being pulled in two different directions. So I
This
think
is
that
so real at this
that was a
age.
good thing for her to have to navigate, though. I mean, that's no different than, you say yes to a birthday party and then a better opportunity comes along, and do you honor that original commitment? I mean, that's what we do in our house, and I think that being instilled in her was a little bit of why she ultimately chose to stay and watch her sister dance, even though she probably would have preferred to be at the pool. Because, I mean, when she got there, some of her favorite friends had already gone, and that was okay, but she didn't really care. I mean, there were still plenty of people for her to hang out with. She was not concerned about who it was, just that it was her people, her tribe. So that was definitely an example of her being in this phase over the weekend.
Yeah, that I love that you've talked about that choosing between thing because it like I had a conversation with a fifth grader at church about this recently. Like he came in and he was like just really off, like a kid that's usually really happy, and he was really off. And I was trying to get to the bottom of it, and he said, "Can we talk?" And I like went in another room with him, like separate, and it turned out that he had some friends who had come to worship with him that day, but they were older. Our kids ministry only goes to fifth grade. So they were like in with the parents or whatever. And he was so torn because he wanted so badly to be with his fifth grade group because that's like the only time he sees them is on Sundays. And yet he had these friends that he'd spent the whole weekend with, but he was like, am I letting them down by not going with them in that space? And he was just like super conflicted by it. So it's a very real thing. Yeah, if you have a fourth or fifth grader or an upcoming fourth or fifth grader, add birthday present money to your budget because
Yes.
this is the age that like they have multiple tribes and every tribe invites the whole tribe to things. And so you're doing this all the time.
I love this time of year teaching this. The school that I teach at is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and being in the library, I get to see everybody. And it's so funny to watch these classes because I see every class every week. We have 20 homeroom classes. And so each one kind of has its own distinct personality. And by about February, they're on each other's nerves. I mean, they're like siblings and they bicker about everything. And then we get post spring break and towards the end of the school year. And it's like they are so bonded. And the thought of being done with school, I mean, they're excited, of course, for summer, but they're always like, but we don't want to leave and we're going to miss our friends. And like they're not going to have that exact same little class ever again. And especially where we live, 5th grade is the end of elementary school. So next year they're going on to 6th grade and they're going to get dumped in with kids from all the other elementary schools around town. So those 5th graders are very aware that every tribe they've known is about to get completely busted up. And they're all really sad about it. But I love the bonds that they have at this point in the year and how they all know each other so well and I know them well and we can joke with each other but be real about so many things. And I'm with you. this is one of my favorite age groups, and why I like teaching them a lot is because of this tribe mentality.
Another cool thing about being on a dance competition team, and I think we see this on like the local soccer club here and some other like the the kids that do competitive swimming, I think, have this, and just some of those sports that they have tribe mentality for like all ages together. And so that's really cool too, because these kids, they don't have to ditch that tribe in a
Mhm.
year, you know? And so I remember still when my oldest was this age, because I hadn't quite gotten my rhythm down of what do I do about the fact that Sunday is a major work day for me and dance competitions, go into Sundays. So a lot of times if my kid wasn't competing on Sunday, I would go to work. But even if it was a competition only event and we were like done and could have gone home Saturday, she was always begging me to stay with a friend so that she could cheer for the seniors. And fortunately, she has a few buddies that have older siblings that were on the team and like they were going to be there. And so I don't even know how many times when she was in fourth and fifth grade, I like left town and went back home to work and left my preteen with friends, and I'd get pictures of them, posing with the high school girls dancing or shopping or going out to eat or whatever at these competitive events because I had left, but she was going to be there with her tribe.
Yeah. Well, and thinking back to my youngest one being torn between the two things, like if I weren't aware of this, it could have been very easy for me to get irritated with her in that moment of like, why are you crying because your friends are at the pool? Like, get over it and watch your sister. That's what families do. But again, because she's my second one and I've lived through this one time already, I was very aware of what that pull was for her and was able to respect that in her in that moment when it would have been, I mean, was it irritating that between every dance she asked me who was still at the pool? Yes. I don't know who is still at the pool. Probably the same people who were there 3 minutes ago when you asked me last time. But I just knew what an internal conflict that was. So I was able to approach that with a little bit more grace than I maybe would have had if I wasn't aware. All right. So next is sixth grade. So this group gets its own little bubble. So these kids in sixth grade, their core question is changing from do I have friends into who do I like? And that doesn't mean like a crush on somebody, but that means they are going to be seeking out individuals who they have stuff in common with, people that they feel a connection in some way with. So a lot of the time, that is someone who was in their tribe from the previous phase, but it could be somebody that's new in their life that they are interacting with in a different way. And this is also the phase in which their friendships are so fluid. They change really rapidly. They could have a new best friend in 2 weeks or in a month. They could have totally different set of friends, but they are testing the waters in some of these things and deciding who they actually have stuff in common with, because they're also kind of figuring that out in themselves too. Like what kind of person are they? I mean, at this age, I feel like so much of their activities are embedded in their identity. And so they're using those things to kind of match up with people who are like them. So the example you brought up, Beth, that your daughter and the other sixth grader that are in my younger daughter's small group, that is a lot of fifth graders and some fourth graders thrown in, they kind of peeled off during that lunchtime. And it wasn't because they don't like those other girls. They do. My youngest and your middle are really
we had them on the
friends.
podcast together.
Yes, they are super close friends. But in that setting, it just, those two older girls, like, they just sort of peeled off and did something a little bit different because they didn't want to be engaged with what the younger girls were doing at that moment. And it wasn't excluding anybody. Nobody's feelings were hurt. It was perfectly age appropriate for them to do that kind of thing. So thinking about my older daughter when she was in this phase, this was kind of the phase where, so when she went to middle school, and I mentioned this a minute ago, that our sixth grade school just sort of becomes, they get all mixed up with kids from all other schools. And they divide them into teams within the school. And she was really hoping that some of her dance friends from her tribe from 4th and 5th grade were going to be on her team at school, and they weren't. And she really didn't even have any friends from school that were on her team. So she found herself in this position where she was having to make a lot of new friends. And I think as she was doing that at school, it sort of allowed her to branch out at dance too and get to know people that she wasn't always with casting or in the same company or things like that. And some of those people are her closest friends now. But I think that was in her trying to seek out those similarities and stuff she has in common with. Like there were other people in her grade, but not necessarily people she had been in a lot of routines or the same classes at dance with that she was seeking out. So I noticed at dance competitions when she was in this phase, she was wanting to make time to be with those friends, even though our schedules didn't always perfectly line up. They may or may not have been dancing at the same time, but that was when she absolutely would have rejected going to do something that the group is doing in order to watch those friends perform, even if it was a routine she wasn't in. So one thing that was important for us to do was for me to let her do that. It took a shift from making time to go do those extra things like that team bonding stuff we were talking about in the last phase into recognizing that these individual friendships were important to her and prioritizing her investing in those in a different way than we had as like investing in the team, if that makes sense. So another thing that she was really concerned about when she was in this phase, so she is on the younger end. We've talked about this before, like dance competitions and conventions take their age as of January 1st, and her birthday's in the spring. And she has several friends whose birthdays are in the fall. And so she started to become more concerned with when they were broken off into their convention classes, like were her friends in her class? Whereas before that, she knew there would be people that she knew and she was happy with that and that was fine. And it wasn't that she wasn't happy with that once she got to 6th grade. She was just more aware and more concerned with who was going to be in her class and were they her chosen people.
That makes a lot of sense. My current 6th grader, I hadn't thought about this, but everything we're about to go do, she says is, and fill in the blank with a name, gonna be there. It's like specific people.
Yes. And I think a lot of that I think it creates a sense of safety for them. Like if they are the people that they have chosen and they feel a connection with because there's similarities. And so that matters to them. The who they are with starts to matter like as individuals versus, oh, sure, it's my friends from dance. It's all great. It's all cool. So I think allowing them to prioritize those deeper friendships, of course, in a way that is not excluding someone else. I mean, 6th graders are very sensitive to this kind of thing. So if there is a friend from the previous phase, obviously we are not going to neglect those friendships. But because their friendships are so fluid in 6th grade, knowing that that is normal and age appropriate for someone that they maybe were really, really close with in the previous few years, for there to be a little bit of distance between them. It doesn't mean that something bad happened or that they don't like each other or they're in a fight. It might, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And not making a big deal out of that. I think as parents, it's easy for us to, and of course we want to make sure that our kids are being kind and respectful to everyone. But this is a phase where it feels like people can get their feelings hurt really easily when maybe that is not exactly what is happening. It's more that interests have changed a little bit or they're seeking out other friendships as they're kind of figuring out who they are. So you have a 6th grader. What kind of stuff did you see over the course of this season that was really for her or not for her as a kid who's in this phase?
Yeah, a lot of those same things that you're describing. Her tribes are still her tribes. And she still loves her tribes, but there are subgroups within the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing. And yes, they are in a school where they get new tribes, these teams. But even within that, they have their subgroups of their people that they just really resonate with. It is what we as adults do too.
Yes.
And so teaching them how to navigate, like how to still be kind and not exclusive to others, but it's okay to be closer to some people than others. This is I don't know how much we want to bring faith into this, but like, following Jesus, like if you look at his life, he had spheres and circles of who was closest to him, and the next
Yes.
layer and the next layer. And that is a normal human thing. And so that is something that is appropriate and okay. I think probably for my 6th grader, one thing that I've seen that's really for her is to let her choose a few, just a few close friends to get an extra dose of time with on these weekends, but not ditch the tribe to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the most important thing is like this has, like you said, kids are really sensitive at this age, and we don't have to do this in an exclusive way. Like, so there are very appropriate times when you can get extra doses with your best friend that don't pull you away from the group to do it. Like the ride to or from of an event. A car only has so many seats. You are not taking your whole small group to the event with you.
And if you do, your poor mom who has to drive that car.
Right. So if there's one or two other families that you carpool with, my poor youngest will never get to do this because we have 3 girls dancing. But our events, traditionally we've kind of structured where like the first event of the year might be just teen and senior routines, the second event of the year is junior teen and senior routines, and then the rest of the season is the whole team including the minis. So as my kids have gotten to this phase, often it's only my oldest or only my oldest 2 going. And we've had margin. There was one time that we bunked up with you guys at a hotel because it was not all the kids. It was only the older ones. So when they have certain friends that are extra close, they can do little things like that that aren't pulling them away from the team. I mean, we see this all the time. Groups that like 2 or 3 dancers, they will room together. Like that's a great way to do that. That's perfectly appropriate. Maybe staying after the event is completely over and everybody's going home and doing an extra meal with somebody or doing some shopping time with somebody. Or for us, like sometimes we arrive early-ish on a Friday because I don't work Fridays. And other people, we've had times that one of my daughter's best friends, when they were in middle school, her mom was a teacher like you, and she couldn't leave till like 3 p.m. But that kid really wanted to be up there with her people and her tribe. And so we brought her along with us and we did some shopping time. And so they can get extra doses of this when it's not, no, we're not coming to hang out with y'all because we're going to go and do our own thing. Like it's not like that.
You don't make it weird.
Yeah, you tag it on when it is appropriate. Another thing is like they'll sometimes go like if they have certain people that they're really close to, like an older dancer that they really love and they look up to, and they by themselves want to on their own or with one other kid go and cheer for that dancer while they're dancing. Or I mean, I don't know exactly how this translates to other sports. I'm sure like with things like track and swimming and martial arts, there's opportunities for that. Gymnastics, those have some individual components to them. I don't know how it works with team sports like soccer and baseball and volleyball and those, but I would imagine there's some opportunities where you go and you just really like support somebody that you connect with, even if you're not doing your thing in a not weird way where you're like ditching people to do it.
Yes.
Or even, this is kind of cool, certain 6th graders, and this isn't for everybody, but if they are like really loving the sport they're involved in and they've got another buddy who really, really loves it and is like driven and has similar goals to them, they might take that friend and go to an extra master class being offered for the weekend, an extra audition that was optional. Like I've watched my oldest, who just lives and breathes dance and still thinks it might be part of her career one day. She's, of my 3 kids, the one who is really the most like laser focused in on dance as her thing. And she likes to go to those extra opportunities. I would say in 6th grade was very much gonna do it if one other friend would come with her, having that support, feeling not alone, but feeling like you've at least got one little sidekick to go into it with. So yeah. I think not for them, things that kind of work against this would be forcing them to hang out with a kid just because you're friends with their parent and your kid doesn't have anything in common with that kid.
Yeah.
Because they're starting
resentful about that too. And it's going to make the whole hangout awkward for everybody.
Yeah. And I'm not speaking really like I won't say that I've like seen this recently firsthand or anything like that. I'm speaking more hypothetically, but I do understand that that's a dynamic that can happen. I haven't seen it in our dance context really at all. But
No.
but just in other contexts I've seen parents of this age kind of try to like make their kids be friends with people who we just can't. Once they hit 6th grade, you're done orchestrating their friendships. I'm sorry. They have to start choosing their own friends. We can't really puppeteer that anymore. So that would be one thing that would not be for them. And then another is just like forcing them to spend more time than they're comfortable with kids on their team that they don't connect with. So like within their tribes, this is the age where they start to have certain ones that they vibe with more than others. Even within their small groups, they start to notice differences in each other in a way that's like, huh. And I think as a parent, it's really important for me to just encourage kindness, but not force my child to subject themselves to like an overabundance of social activities with a kid that maybe makes them feel less than or they just have a hard time resonating with. I think being kind means some amount, but we can limit that. So I think we can go ahead and shift into the last phase that we're talking about today, and that is our 7th and 8th grade phase. So in the 7th and 8th grade phase, their core question that they're seeking for like relational and emotional health is, who am I? What a big question. But what we are talking about here is just kind of what makes them them. What makes them unique? What is their thing? What is not their thing? How are they even unique within their thing? And so I think it was on another episode, Sarah, you described that when you taught junior high, there were people that would have like, what was the word you gave for it? It was like they reinvented themselves over Christmas break. You know, style
They just
changes.
put on a whole new personality when they came back in January, and you're like, oh, hello.
Yes. And so I think this is the age where kids are just trying to make sense of like, but what do I really care about? Like, who am I? What makes me me? And what makes me different from other people and special? I think they're seeking to be seen. If you go back when we talked about that kindergarten and 1st grade phase, it's like, do you see me? Like, hello, look at me, I'm special. This is almost like a more sophisticated version of that.
It's the same thing, though.
It's like a cycle back at a more mature level when they're 13, 12 and 13 and 14.
I've said from my years teaching junior high that they really are just like bigger, more verbal toddlers, essentially. Their brains are going through like the same amount of development and like huge gains and increases at this age as they are as toddlers. They just are a lot more self-aware and a lot more opinionated about it.
Sure. Yeah. So like if they're involved in competitive sports and dance and all these kinds of things, they are really making sense of like, is this actually my thing? Like, am I talented enough at this for this to be my thing? Or has it just been a thing to do and I need to find who I am somewhere else? Now, we could all talk about the deep philosophical, spiritual, relational type of things about where we should find our worth and our purpose and our identity, like in our faith, that's really important. But I think often we put adult perspective on this when we've already sorted out a little bit of who we are. Whereas these kids are at that base level, and there's nothing wrong with them starting first, not exclusive from them being a child of God and made beautifully. Like, we want them to believe that. But what kind of a child of God? What makes them them and what makes them special? And it's really cool to watch them explore that and to just kind of come alive with how they can stand out in the world and how they can make a print on this world, in a unique way. And that there will be another high school phase that even deepens this, to give purpose to it, but they can't move in action with purpose in life until they know who they are. And so starting to just kind of sift through that It's really cool at this age to watch them make sense of that. And in some cases, it means changing how much they hold some competitive thing that they've been doing for a long time, or maybe trying something different that they've never tried before. We've seen kids come into dance for the first time at this age and just be amazing because they are coming into it in an age where they're like poised and ready to like own it and like really believe in themselves kind of thing. Now, we all know and we are aware if we're in competitive sports, dance, anything like that, there's a skill track that takes a long time to develop. So, obviously, kids who have been doing this for longer are going to be more advanced in those kind of areas. So, wherever your kid lands on this, whether they're at a more beginning type level of it as a seventh or eighth grader, or whether they've been doing this thing since they could walk, it doesn't really change that they're trying to find kind of some validation that this is their thing and this is part of who they are. And so I think this is why I mentioned an episode or two ago that like I was so grateful that my oldest daughter had a solo as a fifth grader when she was still in that super confident, like just here for the party kind of phase. And I do wish she had continued to be able to have one in sixth, seventh, eighth grade to like kind of continue that pathway. So it makes me a little sad that we didn't have that. But I think a kid having a first solo ever as a seventh or eighth grader would be a lot of pressure because they're at this phase where they're trying to make sense. I think building on it if they've had it younger would be great. But a first time, it would be hard because they're like weighing every piece of feedback, verbal, nonverbal, whatever, from the world to give them recognition at this phase. They just naturally lean that way. So at a competition weekend, I think some things that we can really do for them, I know when my oldest went through this phase, is just to encourage doing some things on your own. So this is the age where it is very like the healthiest kids tend to be the ones who are willing to not have to have a friend with them for things. That's how I can tell that a kid is like starting to get a good sense of identity at this age is they are willing to be like, oh, this might be my thing that's different from that friend's thing. And I'm willing to chase this path. I'm willing to try this extra audition. We watched a week or two ago, they had it was like well, our kids thought it was a break dancing battle. That's not actually what it was.
No.
Like,
I think they were a little disappointed it wasn't a breakdancing battle.
It was actually an improv competition, but it was labeled weird to
it
where
had the
like
word showdown in it, which very much feels like we're circling up and people are like doing head spins in the middle.
I know. So the kids who thought they could circle up and do head spins went for it. And then it ended up being like contemporary improv. And with my oldest, I was like, you should have done that. You would have killed that. She was like, I thought it was a breakdancing battle.
Right.
And she was like, that is not me. And so she's a ninth grader. She's kind of worked through this phase. But we saw some kids in that phase like, hey, that's a thing that not everybody's doing, but I think it would be for me. So let me just try that out. Or we've seen some kids do some dancewear modeling and things like that, starting to just explore sub pathways that kind of make them unique. They really want approval for being who they are. And so it can be stifling to them if they're being pulled to constantly do things with a friend. And I feel like this is something that we had to have a lot of conversations with. My oldest had some friends who weren't super confident and we're constantly being like, just come do this with me. And she was like, it's not my thing. I don't really want to do that. I think as leaders and parents of seventh and eighth graders, it's a tension phase. I say all the time, I do not want to go back to seventh and eighth grade. It's a hard stage of life. But I think one of the things we can really do is like be with kids and help them just try a little something hard. That's for you and you only. And you might be so surprised at how much joy it brings you and how successful you feel at it. And when they have that small win, they're like, okay, cool, I can try something like that again. But you're dealing with a hormonal teenager that is going to talk back and push back. That's just what this is. So finding their thing and letting them soar with it, it takes some rub and it takes some oomph and us being like a friend to them, but also like kind of that tough coach to them to say, no, you really should do this. Like, it would be good for you. I really rely on people other than me that my teenager loves to push her to some of these things if I have encouraged it and she's not doing it just because I said no. This is a very simple and basic thing that is not related to dance at all, but I have been trying to get my teenager to read the Twilight books because I think she would enjoy them. And I
Yes.
loved them when they came out. She doesn't want to read them just because
Just because you said it, I'll tell her.
I know. So this is what life with kids this age is like. But a lot of times the perspective that they have of being excluded from something or being left out or being passed over or overlooked is false. They perceive the world because they're looking at everybody else finding these unique paths and perspectives, and they see people finding little successes and they think somebody else's success means they've failed. And they often will get in their head about it, believing that that they're being passed over or missing opportunities when that's not reality and it's not what's happening. So I think the more we can name for kids this age the successes that we see in them and the awesome things we're seeing them accomplish and the connections that are being made, and hey, do you notice you got that? Do you notice that teacher said that about you? Do you notice that? I think it's like there can never be too much of that.
Mm-hmm. For
But
sure.
you've got an 8th grader. So talk to us about what this has been like for you.
Yes. I mean, I think to sum it up, the highs are high and the lows are low. But I've even seen this as a continuum from the early 7th grade to where she is now, the end of 8th grade. And I'm starting to see some little glimmers of light at the end of the tunnel here, but it has been a process because you're right. They are just so sensitive. And because of this phase of them figuring out who they are, they put themselves under a microscope and they just analyze every tiny thing that is said to them, especially when it's in an activity that they care about. And they take every comment so deeply. I mean, there have been times that my older daughter has been devastated by something that happened at dance that, like you said, wasn't really anything that was that big of a deal, but it was something that made her feel less than. And so it's, as a parent, I have to try to find a way to not shut her down when she is feeling like that, because she's still feeling those feelings and they're valid, but helping her see that the feelings are not facts and it's okay for her to feel like that in this moment, but give her space to kind of work through those feelings. And then when she's calm about it, be able to have a discussion and help her see where, that wasn't meant to hurt your feelings, that thing that was said. It was meant to make you better and things like that. So I think that also being in competitive dance, though, is an opportunity to have people point out great things about her that she wouldn't have seen in herself. She is not a kid that is always recognized for things at dance. She loves to dance, but she doesn't necessarily have the laser focus about it like your oldest daughter does. She loves it, but it's not the end all be all in her life. And I think that is something that she is kind of realizing as she's coming towards the end of this phase, is that it's okay if it's not that for her and it doesn't hold that kind of weight in her life. And it doesn't mean that she can't enjoy it and she can't still be part of it and she can't do it well at a high level, but she doesn't have to hold it so tightly, which is kind of what I was referring to with like the glimmers of hope. I'm noticing that she is able to kind of take things in stride in a way that maybe she wouldn't have in 7th grade even. But this competition season, at an event, a huge event, she was recognized with an award that they called the Courage Award. And I don't even really know what it was for. But just in that moment where she got that win, I mean, for her, where she got that win, where she felt seen by somebody who wasn't me.
Right.
Or someone who knows her all the time, was huge for her. And so it just gave her that little bit of like deposit in the bank of her figuring out what makes her unique and what things she brings to the table. And so I think that that courage award was for them recognizing someone who was working really hard in class and who was focused and who was positive and who was trying new things with courage and confidence. And she does that. That is her. And it doesn't always get her noticed, and it did in that moment. And I think that that showed her that there is value in those things, and that you don't have to win the award. You don't have to get the coveted part or the featured role in a dance, or even, be cast in the routine that you view as the good routine, even though that doesn't mean anything. That some of those behind the scenes traits matter and get called out at times. So I think that her being in this activity at a competitive level has helped her to figure this stuff out. I mean, they compare themselves to each other so much at this phase. And sometimes that can cause friction and jealousies. But I think when they come on the other end of it, like, she is starting to recognize that her friends, those people that she has commonalities with from the last phase, like, she can appreciate and respect the things that make her friends unique that she doesn't offer, and it doesn't take anything away from her. Like, these are
Right.
kind of the things that she is working through and learning as part of this phase. But it can be so incredibly frustrating, especially when you see your kid upset about something, and it is very easy to want to go into defensive mode about they've been wronged in some way because that's their perspective on it. But I think if we can recognize that this is just a perfectly normal process of their brains developing and them growing into the adults that they're going to be and the adult version of themselves, like, they need to try things and fail. That's the only way that they know something is not for them. And if they can fail forward or in a place that is safe like this, because I mean, she has been at the same dance studio her entire life, and these people there love her and care about her. And if she is not successful in a situation where she is still loved and cared about and people rally around her, that is the best way for her to not be successful, because it doesn't hurt so bad. And she can come out of it and realize, like, okay, that wasn't my thing, but I can find something else that is. For example, when she was younger, she saw so many friends who could, like, do all these acro tricks and were super flexible. And she is not a naturally flexible kid. She used to work and work and work and stretch constantly and want to try to learn to do acro tricks. And, we would do summer private lessons and all these things so she could try to do acro and have this flexibility. Um, and she just eventually realized, like, that was not a thing that she really cared to invest her time and energy in. She realized that she's better at other things with dance, and that's okay. It doesn't mean she's a bad dancer because she doesn't do acro. She has no desire to do that, and that's fine. She has recognized that it doesn't make her less than her friends who can do those things, that she has other strengths. So supporting them as they're working through these things, but also just helping them see, like, what is actually reality versus their perception of what is happening really makes a huge difference in their perspective on the whole thing. Because I feel like it's really easy to go to a negative place when they're in this phase, and we have to help them see that just because they're feeling this way doesn't mean that that's actually how it is.
Yeah, and I think this is the age where, like, who their coaches and leaders are is so important.
Yes.
Because, like, it just takes, and not that we need our kids to be little, like, snowflakes that never have to face adversity. No, the opposite. We want them to face adversity.
Mm-hmm.
But to have people who see them and understand that it's very normal for them to be going through this and to feel wronged when they're not really wronged, to know that's age appropriate and to be able to, like, be steady in those moments with them, not love them any less, not get irritated at how they're responding, or that they don't have a more positive outlook on life. Like, it's not something for us to punish them for by any means.
Right.
But although that's not the behavior or response we want, knowing that, like, that's part of their processing. So I would say a big thing at this age is, like you said, your daughter found so much affirmation at that convention where she got recognized for her courage. Now, I don't know who awarded it to her, whether she has any avenue of having connection with that person. But I will say there are times, I still remember this with my oldest when she was around 7th grade. There were some, like, I guess even a little bit more distant, more like, masterclass teachers, guest choreographers, convention teachers that she felt seen by and made a connection. So she leaned into those and she attended those things more. Like, if your kid is getting like recognized with a scholarship and an event and it allows them to go attend it again, even if your team isn't going, lean into that place where they know there's somebody who's for them.
Yes,
Because
and that's something she's already said, because that scholarship was to go back and take convention classes next season for free. And so she already said, even if our team does not go back to this event, can I go if we're able to go? Yes, absolutely, you may.
And I say this, like, we very much, like, my kids will connect with certain teachers more than others. That's what we all do as
Yes.
humans. And so, like, when we have opportunities for more interaction with those teachers, we're going to lean into it, because if there is someone speaking life and encouragement into my kid in a way that they are hearing it that way and they are interpreting it that way, and it is helping them become a healthy human, I need more of that,
Yes.
And so that's really the best thing we can do for them, I think, at this age, is just help them find the people that they trust who are going to speak encouragement into them and to tell them when they're being unreasonable and unrealistic, and that they will believe that person.
Well, and having those coaches in their life who have the ability to see the thing that makes them unique and help guide them into finding that about themselves. Because having another adult that is not their parent, that they care about and respect, who knows them personally and deeply enough that they do appreciate them for their own unique talents and abilities, and they're not just comparing them to other people on the team, that's huge in their life, to have that voice speaking into them in that way.
I remember you sharing a story with me about someone, an adult that your daughter had interacted with, who maybe had just given her some criticism and she just did not receive it well and was just like kind of shut down. But it was someone that was new in her life and she didn't know them very well. And then time passes and she's formed a bond and a trust with this person. And now they can say those same criticisms and your child laughs about it and
Yes.
shakes it off and applies the criticism
Yes.
because she knows she is loved and valued by that person.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard in these situations when they're together with that coach for such a limited amount of time, and that coach has to push them and has to get them to achieve certain skills or teach them certain skills. But at this age, especially, they are not going to receive and apply that feedback unless the relationship is there first. It is so important for adults that are leading kids of this age to take whatever time they can in order to deepen the relationship so the kid knows that they are cared about before they're pushed really hard. Otherwise, they're going to shut down.
100%. And that's true even with like a confident kid when they get
Yes.
to this age.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I guess we have done a really cool deep dive. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And,
too.
at some point we'll do the high school phases as well. We don't have firsthand experience with all of those yet, but you'll have a 9th grader and I have a current 9th grader, and we'll be dipping our toe into the 10th grade phase pretty soon. So maybe
Please email us and tell us what we don't know, because we definitely don't know a lot.
Right. But how to get the most out of a weekend with that age, because that's what we're learning right now.
Yes.
And so this has been really, really fun. Hope it's been an encouragement to you as well. But as we finish every episode, I'll ask you, Sarah, it's not really about dance. What is it about for you this week?
Pretty sneaking suspicion that what it's about for me this week is probably also what it's about for you this week.
I kind of doubt it. I mean,
You don't think so?
I'm sure I'm living the life you are, but it's not going to be my same thing.
Okay. Well, for me, it is about spring show prep. This upcoming weekend is our big like end of the dance season, spring show, recital, whatever you want to call it. Our studio does like a cohesive show all together. Between that and we also have our competition team showcase on the same day. So you have even more than me, but I have been working my way through 16 costumes to steam, trying to round up all the random hair supplies and makeup and things that have been scattered since competition season ended. Realized just a little bit ago that we don't have enough eyelashes for this weekend. So it feels a little bit like the start of the season in a way. I kind of start to coast at some point. I'm like, I'm prepared. I got all the things. It's fine. And then we roll into the end of it and I'm like, wait, we're out of stuff. I have to re-up. So yes, probably when we're done here, I'm going to go steam some more costumes. So
I'm doing one day at a time because
that's what I'm doing.
For our studio has the kids bring this week the costumes for the classes they're attending, and they do a run with costumes on like in the studio, which is brilliant. It's a good move.
Yes.
Not make the stage the first time that they dance the dance in the costume.
And they're not taking all of their costumes and accessories the night before the performance. So if something gets misplaced at the studio, we have time to track it down.
Yeah, we do. Instead of a true dress rehearsal, it's just like blocking
just
and
staging.
lighting and stuff. So
yes. So I've just been knee deep in the costume prep and all of those things. Beth, what has it been about for you this week?
So I knew this was not going to be what it was about for you. Car shopping, but not really.
Hard pass.
It is like we had a car die that we weren't expecting to die. It needed a repair that probably shouldn't be a major thing, but because of the way the car's lined up, you have to like take the whole front. This is me talking about things I do not know anything about. You have to take the whole front off the car. You have to like do like a complicated, so that ups the cost to where
the labor cost.
It was not worth it to do the repair. But now, because my oldest has like a learner's permit and is within a year of us looking at a vehicle for her, we're like navigating this whole like, do we buy a car for us that is going to be hers? Or do we get something for us and then wait? And teenage girl opinions. It's my husband's car that he drives. And so I'm just doing my thing, other than the fact that I'm driving 4 people around everywhere right now, which is crazy while we're trying to figure out what we're doing. And we do a lot. So driving 4 people around is a whole thing.
That's your whole job now.
During December. So like,
what a bad time.
What is work? Why do I have a job? It's just insanity. But yeah, so my husband is like trying to rationally choose a vehicle while my teenage daughter is saying, no, I don't like gray. I want it to be black or white. And he's like, but what kind of car do you want? And she's like, it just needs to be black or white. Like,
well, that's reasonable.
Well, but she does care, but she just doesn't know how to express that. I still remember when I got my vehicle, she was so set on a certain model. Like, she was, like, determined that I needed to get a Tahoe. She was like, you need a Tahoe. And I was like, okay, but I got other stuff I'm looking at.
Right. That doesn't have to be that.
No, you need a Tahoe. And then, like, I got what I have, and she was like, oh, this is nice. I'm like, right, can you trust me, please?
Yes.
Like,
well, my teenager just leans into that she wants a white Jeep. And I'm like, listen, if anybody's getting a white Jeep, it's me. I'm not buying a white Jeep and giving it to you. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah, so it's like this weird thing where my husband and my teenager are unable to pull the trigger on anything. And meanwhile, I'm a really decisive one in our family who's like, can we please just make a decision?
Just pick something.
I'm driving a lot of people around right now. So that is my life. I'm a ultimate Uber driver until I don't really get to have an opinion on the vehicle because I'm the one who's going to be driving it the least.
Right.
So I have to kind of relinquish control in that. And it's a lot of like, okay, guys, okay, come on.
Well,
come on.
I hope that the light from heaven shines down upon the right vehicle and they feel at peace with their choice and they make it happen for your sake.
If a small white crossover can just like land,
just appear in your driveway.
Yes, I think everyone will be happy. Okay. Well, we will call it a night, I suppose, with all of this. It's been fun. And if you are not already subscribed to our podcast, we would love for you to do that. Feel free to give it a rating or a review. That helps more people see it. We have a growing audience, but want to kind of up it getting in front of people. So also you could share it with a friend, tell them about it if you're enjoying this. Next time when we come back, we will be doing another episode of It's Really About, and this one's going to be about perseverance. So all the things we've learned about perseverance as we've been parenting our kids through competitive dance. So we hope you'll join us back in 2 weeks for that, and that you have a wonderful Maycember between now and then.
See you next time.
Bye.